All right, so what we last left off was we just finished our inventory worksheet, right? I showed you where to plug in your numbers and where they are derived from. So again, the yellow was their total cost for the net purchases. The net purchases is green, which we need to copy down here. And of course, the blue and the orange is going to represent the ending inventory and the cost of goods sold. So again, you are familiarized for where you're plugging in your numbers. Now, because we finished our table, right? Last thing that we have to do is we have to complete our conversion entry. So again, question number 2 says conversion entry using the information from above, convert the ending inventory on April 30th. Okay. And then you have right here assume, right? That all purchases were made on account. I don't know, that wouldn't make a difference, but anyways. So let's go ahead and do our conversion entry. So we should have space in our journal to do our conversion entry. Today's 4:30, right? And what am I actually doing when I'm completing a conversion entry? I'm converting my expenses into inventory, right? So the first thing you're going to recognize is your inventory. Now, when you have inventory items, the general rule of thumb is if you know what they are, then I recommend you to title the account the exact item it is. In this case, I just was generic and just use units. So if you don't know what it is, your automatic assumption is it's got to go into inventory. Okay? Because in this case, if you remember, right, inventory is a very broad, generic account where inventory is the idea that you're just going to end up selling those items out of it anyways. But if you have a particular unit, for example, to break down the main account of inventory, saying I sell coffee mugs, I sell toys, I sell bikes, I sell shoes. Those are specific items that you could, again, utilize as a means for you to expand what inventory is, right? To let you know what products and services you actually sell. So inventory is usually going to be there, okay, right? Because we have inventory, right? We have ending balance. We're increasing our inventory, right? We also have to recognize our cost of goods sold, right? Because that was the purpose of us calculating our table, was to figure out of the items that we had available, we still had some left over remaining, how many items that we sold and how much did it cost me to sell, okay? Remember, we're focusing on what it cost the company. So in this case, it cost the company X amount of dollars, right? Because we purchased them. And then last but not least, since we're going to be emptying out and zeroing out our expenses, right? So in this case, we're going to be crediting our purchase expense. So this is the only occasion where you will actually be crediting your expenses. Is because at the end of the day, what are we doing? We're emptying out these buckets, right? We're emptying out the purchase expense bucket. We're emptying out the freight expense bucket. And we're transferring them into one is going to be inventory, which is your ending inventory, but we're also transferring it out to the cost of goods sold bucket because realistically, we sold some along the way. Okay? So there you go. I have my accounts there. So first things first is we need to recognize what my ending inventory balance was. So in this case, what was the inventory balance? I had 600 units left available, right? How much was the total cost of that?
$3,785.
Excellent, right? 3,785. Now, we need to know what the total value of my cost of goods sold was, right? So in this case, what did I calculate my total cost of goods sold to be?
$10,097.50.
Good. Now notice this. I'm using total value cost, not quantity, right? That was one of the things that we had to do for the monetary unit measurement, right? is that you don't record quantity, you record in terms of how much value, what was the total cost. So in this case, there you go. Now we need to solve for what my total purchase expense was. So let's take a look. Now you can choose either or. You can go up to your inventory page here to determine what your purchase expense was, or down below, right? Because since we copied those numbers down below, my total purchases, right, was this 13,637. We don't include the freight because freight was a separate cost to the inventory, right? We have a separate account for that. So what we're just looking here is just how much it cost me to purchase the items by itself. So in this case, $13,637.50. And then I can recognize the freight expense. Okay? Since I'm zeroing them out, or I'm taking them out, removing them out from each account here, the purchase expense and the freight expense, right? This is what I've accumulated so far. So now I'm taking and removing them out and then moving them into ending balance and my cost of goods sold. Okay? So again, rule of thumb here is to ensure that that our total debits match our credits. So in this case, I got a total of $13,882.50 on the left, with a total of $13,882.50 on the right. So in this case, my journal pans out evenly by transferring all the money in my purchase expense and freight expense and dumping them into my inventory, my ending balance of inventory, and the cost of goods sold. Okay? And of course, I need to add a little description here saying conversion entry for periodic inventory. Okay, and then you can even put in, right, that you had 600 units on hand and you sold 1850 units. Okay, there you go. And that concludes your conversion entry right there. Okay. So now, any questions there on how to do the conversion entry? You calculate all the numbers here, and what you're doing is you're just copying and pasting them, or putting them into and plugging them into each account. And pretty much this is what it represents, right? That you have some inventory left on hand, you sold some on the way, and you purchased them as well. Any questions?
No.
Okay. So let's go ahead and do the second example real quick here. So again, step 3 or question 3 says continue the inventory exercise. Your inventory method is still periodic and it is FIFO, right? We're still doing the same thing here. Now here, I'm going to let you guys know this. I'm not going to require you to practice journalizing the purchase expense and the freight expense anymore. Why? It's rinse and repeat. It's the same exact entry over and over and over again. Only difference is what's the number you're plugging in. So in this case, we've already did that for the first part of the exercise. So let's go ahead and just plug in the numbers into the inventory worksheet. Okay? So here it tells us that on April 30th, you had a total of 600 units on hand, which is true, right? That's exactly what we had from the previous worksheet. Now, in this case, I don't have a batch of 600 units. I have 2 separate batches, one for 100 and one for 500, equaling up to the grand total of 600 units. You need to copy this exactly the way that you see it. So if you see that you have 100 batch remaining, you're going to continue to carry the information over with the separation between the 2 batches. Yes, you have a total of 600, but you cannot combine it, because remember, if this was milk, can you combine the milk that's going to expire August 25th with the ones that are going to expire September 1st? No, you shouldn't. It doesn't work like that. So in this case, that's exactly what you're going to do. The way that we see is we have 100 and we have 500. We're going to carry that over into my new inventory worksheet. right? Because it's a continuation of inventory, but you're starting on a new cycle. So then what we're going to do here is we're going to use our inventory on hand section here. So again, we recognize that we had 100 and 500. We know for a fact that it cost you, I think the first one cost you $6.10 and the second one cost you $6.35. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and have those calculations done here. So again, we have $6.10 from the top, and then we have 500, or in this case, 3,175 here on the 500 batch of inventory, right? And of course, it's also going to apply right here that you're going to go ahead and do your equal sum here. Just so then you can have your running balance of the 600 units that you carried over from the previous inventory, and you also carried over the 3,785. Okay, so that's what you ended with, and that's what you're going to begin with for this new inventory worksheet. Okay, so there you go. I have my beginning inventory. Right? So then now let's go ahead and proceed with our purchases. So then May 5th, we end up purchasing 500 units at $6.25 each with a freight of $50. So again, I'm going to plug it in here. It's May 5th. Okay, so May 5th, we purchased 500 units at $6.25 each with a freight of $50. So again, this was the exact same one that we just recently recorded. Okay, so in this case, purchase price, right, it's going to be your quantity of 500 times the unit price of $6.25 each, which gives you a total of $3,125. Total cost is going to be your purchase price plus your freight of $50, giving you a total of $3,175. And then the cost per item is going to be the $3,175 divided amongst the 500 units, which in this case gives you $6.35. So in this case, boom. Right? And of course, if you want to save some extra time, you can go ahead and click that green little square, click, hold, and drag to however many boxes you want the formula to be applied to. So in this case, I'll just go ahead and apply it to 3 boxes after that. Okay. Now notice this says right here, it says that you have a division problem. The reason is because you have an empty cell. So don't worry, as you plug in the numbers, it will fill in, and that error code will no longer be there. Okay. All right, so then May 10, you end up purchasing 800 units at $6 each with a freight of $80. Okay. May 10, 800 units at $6, right? That should be straightforward. 8 times 6 is 48, right? Because there's 800, you just add 2 zeros. So in this case, it already calculated for me to be 4,800, right? Plus, we had $80 worth of freight, giving you a total of $4,880, which, like I mentioned, right? Because you see this error code right here that says /div/0 exclamation point, meaning you can't divide 0, right? That's because this cell was empty. But now that they got filled in, what happens is now it recognized that, yes, you're taking the 4,880 and now you're dividing it by the quantity of 800. So therefore, it's going to equal $6.10 per item. Okay? So again, formulas, again, some error codes might flag you for, human error, but at the end of the day, it's just because this message just means that you can't divide 0. But we know at the end of the day, those numbers will populate later. So that's that one there. Okay. Next one is May 20th, where we purchased 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of $15. So May 20th, 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of $15. Okay, let me double check those numbers real quick. Purchased 300 units at $6.15 with a freight of $15. So in this case, that's what your end result is. You got 300 at $6.15 gave you a total of $18.45 plus $15 gave me the $18.60. Which if you divide it, it gives you $6.20. Okay. Last one here was May 25th. We end up purchasing 100 additional units at $6.30 with the freight costing you $5. Okay, so this one's pretty straightforward. May 25th, we bought 100 units at $6.30, which gives you $6.30, plus $5 of freight gives you a total of $6.35, which if you divide it by 100 will give you $6.35. Okay, so there you go. I completed my table. Right, I have my inventory on hand, which is my beginning inventory. Here's all the purchases I made throughout the rest of May. So let's see what happened last. May 31st rolls around. Okay? May 31st rolls around and you have a total of 400 units on hand. Okay? 400 units on hand. So May 31st. So that means I've reached the end of my accounting period because someone went down to the basement and took a physical count and told you that you have 400 units left. So therefore, my ending balance is a quantity of 400. So that's where I have to tell myself, now I need to calculate all my grand totals. So in this case, right, equals sum. What is the grand total amount of quantity that I purchased? Purchased only, okay? So you got 500 plus 800 plus 300 plus 100. How many units did you purchase in grand total? Okay,
1,700.
1,700. Good, right? And because I put the formula there, I can go ahead and copy this formula all the way down to where I need it. So there you go. I made my first mistake. I moved it. Okay, there you go. I'm going to go all the way down to my total cost here. So in this case, it has calculated for me what my sum of this entire column is. So I have a grand total of purchase expense or purchase price to be $10,400. We have an additional $150 worth of freight, bringing you a total cost of $10,550. Okay? No need to do anything else here. Now I'm going to highlight this so then we can do the same thing to make sure that we're copying everything correctly. So this total here was, I believe I used yellow. Okay? Now so let's go ahead and start filling in our table down below. Right? We have 1,700 units at a grand total of 10,400. Okay. We did not have any purchase returns and allowances. That would be left on the right side of the corner here. So therefore, what would be my subtotal? Now, because purchase returns and allowances reduce the inventory, in this case, I'm reducing 0. So therefore, my subtotal should be the same. Okay. My freight is also derived from the totals up here, right? Freight doesn't add to quantity, but it does add to total cost. So here we have $150 worth of freight. Okay. Now because they add to the cost, right? That's exactly what you're doing. You're going to add your numbers up together. So in this case, I missed a number here. You're going to add 10 400 with 150 to get your 10 550. And then you just match it there. Okay. So now this is my net purchases. We colored this green, right? Because we're going to need to carry this number down. Okay. Now we finished that section there. What was the total amount of purchases that we've made? Okay. So now, second one is going to be, what about beginning balances? Do we have beginning inventory?
Yes.
Yes, we do, right? We carried the 600 units from my previous inventory worksheet, right? I'm going to make this red so it's a little more obvious. Okay? My inventory, my beginning inventory. So that means whatever I put in my inventory on hand, I'm going to copy it right here. Okay? So I have 600 units to begin with, right? At a grand total cost of this $3,785. Okay? I'm going to drag down my net purchases that I calculated from above, which was the green. Okay? Okay? And that's going to give me my total goods available, right? Because I need to add them up together because I have some inventory that I started out with and I just made purchases of inventory. So in this case, 600 plus 1700 gives you a grand total of 2300. Same thing here. You're going to add the 10,550 to the 3,785 to get a grand total of $14,335. Okay? And that's your goods available. If someone on May 31st decided to tell you that you have a total of 400 units available in the inventory storage room, your assumption is you must have sold a grand total of 1,900 units, right? You're going to take your goods available of 2,300. You're going to subtract out what you have on hand, which is the 400 units. So that means everything that is not there, you're assuming that you sold it. So in this case, I don't have 1,900 units because I must have sold them. Okay? So what you're going to do here is I'm going to also create a line, a table here to represent my cost of goods sold. Okay? Right, let's take a look at how many items we actually have in my cost of goods sold or available that I have to sell, right? So if you remember, when you carry ending inventory and you place it into the inventory worksheet and you have now beginning inventory, you're going to treat as those ones came in first because they really did, right? Because in this case, we made a purchase on May 5th. These were things that came in on April 30th. Okay, so again, your beginning inventory is that 100 batch and then the 500 batch, and then you can go ahead and start dipping into your actual purchases that you've made. So in this case, you actually have a total available of 6 batches of inventory available. Okay? And of course, ending balance, we're going to have to figure out. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go ahead and create my table here. And I'm going to call this my cost of goods sold. And of course, I'm going to have my running balance, which is my equal sum formula. So then I constantly know exactly how many items I am needing to sell to meet my cost of goods sold quantity of the 1900 units. And I'm going to carry them over. Okay, so then it's constantly also calculating the total cost. Okay. So in this case, right, using the rules of FIFO, which batch of inventory is going to be sold first?
The 100 at 610.
The 100 at 610, the batch of inventory that we carried over from the previous worksheet. So in this case, 100 at 610 is the first batch that we're going to get rid of. So 100 at 610, which is, we already know we're going to get rid of all of it. It's going to be 610. Okay? And of course, you can go ahead and strike through it if you want to do that. I'm not gonna do it for this time. Okay? So you got rid of your first 100 items. You have a long way to keep going. So in this case, which batch of inventory are we gonna sell from next?
500.
The 500 at 635 from your beginning inventory. Okay, not the one that we just purchased. So in this case, 500 at 635, which gave you 3,175. Now you can choose to do that, copy and sell reference here, or what you could also have done too is you could have, put your formula in here saying that it's your total quantity times cost, right? And you'll get the same answer. But I was just being a little lazy there and just copying everything in there. Okay. So there you go. So now you sold a total of 600 units at $3,785. How many more do you need to keep selling? And at this point, you need to keep on going because 600 out of 1900, you still have 1300 left, or at least roughly a lot left. So let's see which batch of inventory we're going to sell next. Now in this case, I already got rid of all my beginning inventory. So now I should be dipping into my net purchases. So what am I going to get rid of first?
May 5th, 500.
May 5th, 500. And right now that cost per item is the 635. So there goes another 3,175. Okay. So now I'm at 1,100. How many more units do I need to keep selling?
1100.
Right now you're at 1,100.
Oh, 800.
Yes. So in this case, if you can't do the math, you could do 1,900 minus 1,100. You need 800 more to reach 900. And let's see, do I have another batch of inventory? Let's see. What's the next one we're going to sell?
May 10th, 800.
Perfect. We already have one exactly for the full amount of 800 units. So in this case, it's going to cost me 610, which is going to cost me a grand total of $4,480, which, boom, I get my grand total of 1,900 units, and I get a grand total of $11,840 even. Okay. So now I need to solve for my ending balance. So once again, it's going to be blue. I can create a small miniature table here. So I'll create one right here. I guess I could put it right here. Ending inventory. So again, we used up 2 batches of inventory, right? we have the 300 left and the 100 units left in this case. So 300 and I have 100 left. Okay, so that's going to give me my grand total here, which is my ending balance, right? This gives me exactly 400 units. Now, what's my total cost? We would have to figure that out by adding those two numbers together, okay? And in this case, my entire batch of the 300 yields me 1,860, while my last 100 batch only gave me 635. So in this case, total for my ending inventory is going to be $2,495. Okay? So again, you could do it that way, or you can simply take your goods available minus my cost of goods sold, and I should get the same answer of 2,495. I don't have to add or anything. This way would be a little more quicker. Okay? So any questions here? Now that I have beginning inventory, okay? So it's just adding an extra concept and just adding up your total amount that you have available to sell, okay? So last but not least, we need to complete our conversion entry, right? So in this case, that's exactly what I have left here down below is enough for your conversion entry for May 31st, okay? So what do I need to recognize for my conversion entry?
Inventory.
Inventory, right? What else? What else do I need to recognize?
Cost of goods sold.
Cost of goods sold. And what else?
Accounts payable.
Not accounts payable. You're not paying anything off. When I purchased my inventory, what did I recognize them as? Okay, so remember my concept that I mentioned, right? When you buy inventory, right, we have a total of 4 buckets. One named purchase expense, one named freight expense, one named inventory, and the other one named cost of goods sold. Now, as I'm going through the month, I'm making purchases, right? So I'm filling up my purchase expense and my freight expense bucket. Now that it's the end of the cycle, my inventory accounting cycle, right? I now need to distribute all of the items that I have in my purchase expense and my freight expense and put them into the other 2 boxes, right? My inventory box and my cost of goods sold, right? I already know that 400 of those units are going to go straight to inventory. So I'm going to take my purchase expense box and I'm going to put 400 into my inventory box. Now the second thing is I have a cost of goods sold because realistically I sold 1,900 units. So I'm going to take the rest of my purchase expense box, dump it into my cost of goods sold, and I'm also going to empty out my freight expense, right, into my cost of goods sold. Okay? So at the end of the day, that's exactly what the conversion entry does is you're literally converting your inventory, right? Because right now you originally recognize them as expenses, right? And after you've gone through the cycle of selling your products, right? Then you now have to recognize that you sold them along the way as well as now you have some leftover remaining. So that's the idea here. So here You're going to recognize because we're going to be emptying out our purchase expense and our freight expense. Okay? So let's go ahead and just do what we know here. So what value am I going to put in this first inventory here? What am I recognizing in that first
100.
inventory? The 400 units at what total cost?
$24.95.
$24.95. Okay. What about my total cost of goods sold?
$11,840.
Okay. What about my purchase expense?
$10,400.
Good. And then what about my freight expense?
100.
Good. Okay. So let's go ahead and tally up my totals real quick. Okay. I have a total of $14,335 on the left, and I have a grand total of $10,550 on the right. There's something wrong with my formula, or there's something that I'm missing. Now, in this case, I'm missing a credit. Now, let's go ahead and determine what that credit is. If I'm supposed to have 14,335 and I only have 10,550, I am missing $3,785. Where have I seen this number? Where have I seen this number before?
Beginning balance.
It's your beginning inventory that you carried from the previous one. So in this case, I also have to remember to include my beginning inventory. Okay? Now in this case, these two inventory accounts are the same. One of them is you're just taking out what you have in there and putting it on the shelf to sell, right? And then once you reach the end of the accounting period, now you got to shove some more inventory back in there because now you have leftover remaining. That's the same idea, okay? That's how you have to understand. Now, for this class and for practices purposes only, I'm going to allow you to put in an indication to let you know that this was ending balance comes first, beginning balance comes last, okay? Just so then you're able to identify where you're putting your numbers in, okay? So again, when you recognize inventory, you're always, or the first thing you're going to do when you have a debit for inventory, you're always going to be ending balance, right? Ending is always going to come first. Beginning is always going to come last, okay? Because again, we're trying to figure out how many items we have available to sell, right? So you're going to combine everything together. You're going to combine the beginning balance as well as combine all the purchases that you've made. That's exactly what this credit is. And we're going to distribute them by putting them in those respective boxes. Okay? And of course, you're going to have same entry as this one, except we're going to have some minor changes. So conversion entry for periodic inventory, you have 400 units on hand and you sold a total of 1,900. Okay. And that concludes the periodic inventory worksheet for the costing method of FIFO. So do you guys have any questions in regards to anything that we learned today?
No.